welcome to ECCB Connects. Digital technologies have changed the way the world works, how we interact, and how business is conducted. Although we rely heavily on these technologies, many people still face difficulty with gaining basic internet access and connectivity. We explore the issue of digital transformation in this episode. Stay connected with us. We'll be right back.
The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank invites you to visit our new blog,
Insights towards Recovery, Resilience, and Socio-Economic Transformation.
The blog is ECCB's newest initiative to strengthen its engagement with you, the citizens and residents of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union.
Through this platform, the bank will share with you insights on its strategic priorities and projects for the well-being of the people of the ECCUH,
and invites you to subscribe and share your views on each blog post.
Join us as together we build resilience and create shared prosperity for the people of the Currency Union.
Check out the ECCB's website and Facebook page for more information.
The COVID-19 pandemic has introduced us to the new normal, which is now the norm, and the use of digital technologies for everyday living has now become the way of life. In this episode, we share with you excerpts from the recent ECCB Digital Dialogues. Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, Timothy N.J. Antoine, moderated the session dubbed Pandemic and Digital Transformation Part 2. The panel of experts comprised the Honorable Minister for Information, Communication and Technology in the Government of St. Christopher and Nevis, Akila Byron Nisbet, Head of Regulatory Affairs, Caribbean, Cable and Wireless Communications, David Cox, and Technical Advisor in the Office of the Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Christy Powell. They explored the role of the public and private sector in broadening the use of and access to digital technologies across the region.
ECCB Digital Dialogues. Join the conversation as we take collective action to transform our region now.
As the use of the internet becomes more and more intertwined with our day-to-day activities, how are the telecommunications providers across the region handling this demand for more connectivity, particularly in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic? Head of Regulatory Affairs for the Caribbean Cable and Wireless Limited, David Cox, explains.
I think the story of 2020 and into 2021, or as some call it 2020 2.0, is for the telecoms industry at least a story of some remarkable successes and some pain. The successes I speak of are that when the pandemic really hit the region, it became obvious overnight that the demand for connectivity would be unprecedented. The shift in demand in some cases from 1 week to another in March was as much as 40% and 50% in other cases across the region. So specifically, you saw that people were online, they were consuming a certain amount of bandwidth 1 week. And then when country after country started closing borders, initiating shutdowns, initiating curfews, that demand for broadband connectivity spiked, sometimes 50%. What was interesting, and what I think the region has not taken enough notice of, is that by and large, and of course there are always exceptions, but by and large, the networks that we have in the region were able to sustain that increase in demand. Across the region, from Jamaica down to Curacao, country after country was able to boast networks that were resilient enough to accommodate the increased need for working from home, the increased need for online schooling, the incredible demand in the area of entertainment. People were home longer hours. They wanted entertainment. They were consuming more media than ever before in our region. And that increase in demand has basically been the same since March 2020, and we have not seen frankly, a leveling off, it continues to increase. So I think the first point I want to stress is that our networks are actually in the region far more resilient than we realize. They are actually able to meet our citizens' needs, at least insofar as those people who have connectivity. And I think that is something that we need to be thankful for. We need to take note of. It is important because often there is a narrative that the networks in the Caribbean are somehow substandard or are somehow less than world class, and that isn't true. Of course, the situation did expose the divide between the haves and the have-nots. It exposed the divide between the urban centers and rural and poor communities. It exposed the divide between children who came from affluent households, who had multiple devices in their hands available to them to go online, to interact with their teachers and their classmates, and those students who lived in communities who were disadvantaged, disenfranchised, whose families perhaps either couldn't afford or were not interested in having a broadband connection. And that lesson was very painful. And so we've seen across the region that there are pockets, there are sections of our communities where, for a range of reasons, people didn't have connectivity. And that was very difficult for government, particularly because of the impact on students. The telecoms operators have tried to meet the gaps and have done a number of things in order to support our communities during this time. And it would be impossible for me to go through all of them, but I just want to quickly list a few of those things that we were trying to do. First thing we tried to do was just to make sure people remain connected. So for a period of time, a number of telecoms operators across the region, not just in the Eastern Caribbean, but across the region, we just weren't disconnecting customers if they couldn't pay. So for a period of time, customers were allowed to just stay on the network. And for periods of time after they were given an amnesty for payments, we continued to provide connectivity, albeit at lower levels, so that people could just have some connection while the pandemic was raging and while the lockdowns were affecting their ability to pay. In the aftermath of the economic impact, where so many people have been out of work, we've also developed a range of services, again, that give people minimum connections, that allow them to use services, etc., but which do not require them to continue to have to pay the same sums of money that they previously did. The bottom line is that we have experienced sort of the best of what the industry can offer, but we also need to reckon with these very painful gaps that we see in our rural and poor communities. And we need to work with government very, very firmly across the region in order to try to fill those gaps as quickly and as reasonably as possible.
Digital technologies are here to stay, and young people have a key role to play in the adoption of this way of life. Technical advisor in the Office of the Prime Minister, Government of the Bahamas, Christy Powell, explains why young people are integral to the development of the digital economy across the region.
When I look at the region, nowadays, the majority of what it is that we need are software developers to build the next generation web applications and mobile applications. And the truth is, the one solution that we need is to actually look at our universities. And I know that's a long-term game, but the reality is they're not just producing the individuals that we need that are going to be swept up by the job market who have the skills, because the curriculums are so outdated. And we suffer from it in the Bahamas. So I'm sure it's the same, complex paradigm within the region. So I think that's one of the things that we need to do first. And what happens as a result of that is the public sector and the private sector continue to outsource software development to foreigners. And that frustrates a young person like me. So I'm sure all of the listeners, who are young, budding entrepreneurs are like, that grinds their gears when they think about it. The region spends upward of $50 million a year on their infrastructure and software development, and that all goes outside. And I think one of the major opportunities right now on the horizon for young entrepreneurs is actually within the government, because governments within the region now are going to start looking at ways to hire more local talent and technologists, not only to save money, but to also spur that innovation within the agencies and the ministries. And that could be as simple as, how do we connect the Ministry of Finance to the Ministry of Health? How can we make sure that when someone walks in to get a booster shot for their child, that they're able to pay through the Ministry of Finance's payment backbone. And so therein lies great opportunities for young people. The other thing I would say is that when young entrepreneurs right now are thinking about building applications for others, they may be thinking about, how do I build the next website, or how can I add an e-commerce platform to someone else's business? I would actually encourage them to think about problems that they want to solve. So Minister spoke about things that they're doing. I think it's called 869, or being able to order food within St. Kitts. And not just thinking about, I want to bring Uber to the Bahamas or bring Uber to Barbados, but really pushing the boundaries of our imagination and understanding the social and cultural contexts that we have within our countries to actually solve problems. And then the last thing I would say is, when governments go out and even the private sector think about the latest technologies that they want to build or employ, I would encourage young people in the Caribbean to actually join forces together. What we're seeing right now is when young entrepreneurs apply within the government, apply for the bidding process or the RFP process, they're often beat out by foreign companies. And it's because governments can't always assume the risk of working with a sole proprietorship when it comes to building out something that's going to sustain. And it disheartens and it weakens their spirits, because and I'm speaking from experience, right? Like it would flatten me as well. And so my words of advice there is to actually join forces with the person sitting next to you who's working in the technology innovation hub, and don't see them as a threat, but actually join together so that you can rival the bigger companies that are out there that may be winning the bids. But there's truly a lot of opportunity, and I think for us it's not always about I know we always say it's access to funding. I actually don't think it's access to funding right now. I think the private sector needs to take a leap of faith with working with a young entrepreneur and trust that there is local talent that can actually produce the same thing that a foreigner can, and take the leap of faith within government to work with a young entrepreneur as well, and really build those public-private partnerships and grow that sector of the economy. So, and I think it's about, again, it's not about the funding, it's about taking a risk on a young person. And I would encourage everyone working or listening on this call who has a next application that they would like to build, to take a risk on that young person that they see there who's interested in software development.
According to the Honorable Minister for Information, Communication and Technology in the Government of St. Kitts and Nevis, Akila Byron Nisbet, policy, legislation, and regulation have to come together to ensure that every home has connectivity. She shares with us her vision for the digital transformation of our region.
As we are all aware, the pandemic has certainly fast-tracked our initiatives to move towards digital transformation and a digital economy. And one of the biggest concerns is that those countries who do not do it quickly enough would be left behind, because as we see, the world is moving more towards digital economies. And so we would have to make sure we put every effort behind making sure that the Caribbean in particular and the countries within our region and space are at that place where they are ready to continue to move forward and be resilient and be able to move with the rest of the world as we now engage more in a digital economy. We have to begin to see broadband access and internet just the way we see water and electricity. And then understand that we would have to change our policies within government. So just like the building board, you need to have certain things in place in order to make sure the basic of water and electricity is provided to our home. Same thing, we need to see that same push in order to have broadband being available to the home as well. So that means that we have to make sure our legislative and policy and regulations all play a part in seeing the digital transformation and being able to see this become a reality. Because in the future, and the future is already here, the internet and access to the internet is just as important in our day and age as water and electricity. And so it's important for us to see that. In St. Kitts and Nevis, we're talking about a 90% internet penetration, which tells you that internet is just as important as water and electricity. All the tools that we have in IT, that's how we have to look at it, tools. And so how can we use these tools to better enhance our positions in life or situations or education or whatever it is. Use the tools wisely in order to be able to get the outcomes that you desire. And it will be part of what you need to learn and how to use it in order to be able to interact with the future of government, the future of any economy worldwide.
We are students of the Roseau Primary School in Dominica, and you are watching ECCB Connects.
We've come to the end of another episode of ECCB Connects. Join us next week for a new program when we share with you who we are, what we do, and how we serve you. Thanks for watching and stay connected with us.